In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I helped a mechanical engineer raise his mood from a 3 out of 10 to 7.9 out of 10, and how this process helped him rebuild his marriage and his mind. If you can see on my screen here, we have his data, his real data from ActualizeOS 2025 Wrapped, which is something private that we build for clients that we work with. And his mood went from a 3 to 7.9, and he said, after a week or two of intentional vulnerability with my wife, I've noticed that the ups and downs are less intense and our overall gratitude is higher. It's been a huge shift in our marriage and has really helped us grow. If you've never seen my face before, my name is Ege. I'm the founder and CEO of Data-Driven Actualization, and I help analytical men who built a good life on paper turn their minds into their biggest asset and create their next version of the ideal life. So today I'm going to show you the results, but I'll also show you the practices that led to those results, because something I dislike in results videos I've seen is people show the proof, but they don't really show the method. And in this video, I want to show you both. So first, let's start with who this engineer was and check if this sounds like where you're at. He was a married mechanical engineer who'd built his dream life with a good job and a wife, but something just felt off inside. Him and his wife felt like two individuals doing life next to each other rather than working together as a team. And he was struggling to put what he was feeling into words. This was something that was difficult for him versus solving an engineering problem was pretty easy for where he was at. And lastly, he wanted to be less selfish and emotionally more available, but defaulted to shutting down to preserve energy because he had a lot of responsibilities at work. I guess lastly, he didn't resonate with therapy and just talking about stuff and wanted a clear system and data for his inner world. He didn't like the idea that he could go to a therapist, talk about his feelings, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, but then not have any guarantees that this would lead to any results. So if this sounds like where you're at or similar in terms of personality type, pay attention to the rest of this video. When we started, he had low mood. He was engaging in numbing habits, which can be things like scrolling, watching stuff on YouTube, just doing things at night to avoid reality, or to get to a point where almost you're going into this vegetative state and then you're basically going to bed, right? Instead of being with your thoughts and emotions. And on our onboarding form, a few things he said was work feels like a slog, just financial provision. Communication is an area of improvement in my marriage. My mental state feels at the whim of what's going on in the now. And he had no meditation experience coming in. Now, what we did is we helped him re-engineer his mind and his world using the RDT Loop. If you watch content from this channel before, you know the RDT Loop is our basic process to regulate, debug, and track. But when we work with people one-on-one in a group setting, we can actually tailor that loop to the person that we're working with and their situation. So the first thing we did together was to create safety in his relationship. First, he had to find safety within himself. And the core understanding here is, if this is something that you're also struggling with, right? When people feel unsafe or get triggered, they teleport back to a younger version of themselves when this trigger originally began. So let's say I have an anxious attachment style and my partner is very silent, and I feel as a result of their silence that I did something wrong, right? In that moment, I'm not actually being an adult. I'm teleporting to being that little kid who maybe got the silent treatment from his mom or his dad whenever he made mistakes. And obviously, we don't see this transformation physically in the person in front of us, so we assume we're talking to an adult, but actually in that moment, we're talking to a version of themselves that doesn't have the full capability that this person would have had in a normal situation. And this happens to me, this happens to you, this happens to all of us. And understanding this is a common part of the human experience can give you so much compassion, where if you're in a relationship, you can look at your partner's triggers and understand, oh, she's feeling unsafe right now, and be a little bit more grounded and bring her back to safety. Or if you're interacting with people in general, it just makes you so much more grounded. So for him to build this protector archetype, we started with a visualization that he did daily as his regulation practice. So this helped regulate himself, but also regulate his partner, because he's in a marriage and he's sharing this space with his partner. This visualization began with him as a child and his partner as a child. And what we did was I slowly walked him through imagining himself as a kid and imagining his partner as a kid, and just imagining they met in this experience, almost like a movie scene, right? And in all those different ages, I encouraged him to be the protector for this girl and eventually this woman who was his wife. So I encouraged him to provide verbal safety using words like, I'm here to protect you, it's okay, you are safe here, I'm here with you. But also physical safety, which can be hugging or holding the person. And we walk through, ages of 5, 6, 7, just starting school, all the way up to where they were in their marriage today. And the reason we did that is a lot of the time when we see the person in front of us as an adult, it's quite easy to be frustrated at them. But if we see them as a kid, then it also brings back this innocence of the other person, that this person can make mistakes. Not everyone has life figured out. I don't have life figured out. You don't have life figured out. We all make mistakes, right? So when we can remember to go back to a younger version of ourselves in these moments, we can bring back more compassion to that moment. That's how you actually become a strong man. It's not by avoiding emotions, it's not by avoiding vulnerability, it's by welcoming emotions, but no matter what the other person is presenting you with, you stay in that unconditional positive regard for yourself and for them. So that's not to say stay in a situation that you're not enjoying or stay in an abusive situation, but that is to say, take the person in front of you with loving eyes and look at them with loving eyes, right? So in that sense, when we were working on this, we first focused on bringing the protector archetype. But then the next stage of this, as our work expanded, was to pay attention to what would it be like to receive this. Which is interesting, right? How would he feel if he was his partner in all these ages receiving this support? And when we were going through this, he mentioned feeling a sense of safety and a sense of relaxation. And the reason we do that is we always have this loop between giving and receiving. And as men, we're usually trained to give, be the provider in many contexts. However, a lot of the time, especially with high-performing men, the axis of receiving is very underdeveloped. And for him to see the power of being in the right emotional state and how much that can change his relationship, I wanted him to see what it would be like to receive the state he was able to cultivate through this visualization. So as his regulation practice, he did this for 10 to 15 minutes daily, twice a day. If you want, you can do it once a day. As my mentor said back in the day, 1 is better than 0, which means doing something that's helping you with what you're going through is better than doing nothing. And we would build up sharing the state from low emotional stake situations to high emotional stake situations outside of this visualization or meditation, whatever you want to call it. So first he would start with imagining the younger version of himself and his partner and being really protective. And then maybe he would eventually go on to imagining a frustrating time, an argument, and seeing if he could stay connected to that same space. This is, just like doing progressive overload in the gym. This is how we progressively overload when it comes to our ability to maintain a state in all the disturbances that life throws at us, right? And the key realization here, especially if you're a man who identifies with, being stoic, being undistractable, being the rock in a relationship doesn't mean being stoic. It means being the safe space and the stable person that the other person can come back to. So the core shift here is strength with vulnerability leads to a deeper sense of strength, both for you as a person, but also for the relationship that you're in. The second part of the RDT loop is debugging faulty mental patterns, false beliefs that stop us from experiencing life at our full potential. So his first faulty mental pattern was the belief that he had no idea what proper healthy emotional expression is. And in a sense, there was some good in this because this made him open to doing the mentorship and learning about this. However, believing this also led him to struggle to stand up for himself and his needs, like, hey, he needed some alone time, he needed to go on some motorbikes rides because he wanted to be a good, understanding husband. So his intentions here were good, but the belief that he didn't know how to express his emotions almost led him to feel like the way he expressed his emotions was wrong, right? So through our work together, over time, with tracking the data and seeing real life wins, there were new beliefs that were installed. These two new beliefs were first, balancing my needs with my partner creates more love in the relationship because there's no resentment, right? And therefore is being a good husband. So it doesn't have to be between, I have to choose between being a good husband and making space for myself. We shift that into making space for myself in a way that feels enough for me and not too much for my partner is being a good husband. And then second, the new belief was it's okay to express emotions differently, and I'm getting better at vulnerability through the mentorship that we were doing together, right? So we would debug that. And then the second, which is a very common faulty mental pattern for a lot of men who tie their identity to their performance, is he felt like if he wasn't pushing forward, he would fall behind. And the symptoms of this were he couldn't find the time to do self-care activities. I remember we had a call one time and he was sleeping 6.5, 7 hours per day. And I told him, hey, sleep a little bit more since you're mentioning this burnout. And he said, that's going to be so much harder to make time for. I don't know if there's the ROI in that, right? So he couldn't find the time to take care of himself because he'd run a cost-benefit analysis in his mind and say, I'm not sure if I can do this with the limited time I have. The second symptom of carrying this faulty mental pattern was burnout and numbing activities after pushing himself to the max during his day. One of the shifts he experienced through our work was recognizing that celebration and rest leads to integration, right? Just like there's summer where people are more active, we go out, we meet people, we socialize, and then winter, the weather is a little bit worse. It was snowing today actually, as I'm recording this video. People tend to retreat inwards. Just like nature has cycles, it's fine if we have cycles too. And by resting, we also create more sustainability in our work because then we don't experience burnout. So that was the key shift for him when it came to the debugging beliefs layer. And lastly, the third type or the third part of the RDT loop is tracking. So during 2025, he submitted 165 daily reports, which were 165 honest data points that we could both look at and say, how is this work going? How are we doing? He did 4.1 hours of meditation from zero baseline, and this allowed him to become more loving towards himself and his wife. He had 73 workouts, 62 social opportunities taken, and a big win is he had 96% reduction in numbing activities, which is crazy to think about. It's crazy how much the avoidance activities we engage in, which are different for people. For some it could be drinking, for others it could be drugs, for others it could be socializing, going out, meeting people, social media. Sometimes ChatGPT, learning, working with AI models can even be avoidance activities, right? But when we build a healthy belief system, we don't need to avoid life anymore. And that was the effect this mechanical engineer saw as we did this work together. And that's why his numbing habits reduced by 96%, but also his mood went from a 3 to a 7.9. And this is not just about quantitative metrics, it's also about the changes in his life in terms of the relationships that he had with his wife and with other people. So here he says, after a week or two of intentional vulnerability with my wife, I've noticed the ups and downs are less intense, gratitude is higher. It's been a huge shift in our marriage and has really helped us grow closer. This was the win we started the video with. Then he said, I showed up for my wife emotionally and gave her support when she needed it. By meeting his needs, he was able to become an even better husband, instead of repressing his needs and trying to live up to his conception of what was a good husband. I have this temptation to withdraw inside myself out of fear, to preserve my emotional mental energy or time, but pushing through is worth it for myself and my wife. Then, the lesson about celebration. I'm worth celebrating. Celebration is something I struggle with and I dismiss it because I don't know how to do it, or don't see the point in it most times. My wife is pushing me to be more mindful of it and embrace celebrating things. And then his best week of 2025 was productive, rested, and proactive. So he experienced less burnout, more balance, and more results. We can see here that week his boldest move was, I took a new task and set up meetings to discuss instead of waiting for my boss to get back from vacation, trying to be more independent and a go-getter. When we take the time to rest, we have the mental space to do more things, to become even more of a winner in our career. His top win, as I got a lot of stuff done in addition to taking time to rest. Amazing, right? And top lesson, which is my favorite part of this week from him, I don't need to push myself ragged to be productive. I can get the same amount of tasks done if I allow myself to rest versus just pushing through the exhaustion. For me, as a high performer that I was working with, this is an incredible win, and a win that stacks for the rest of his life. Now, his transformation did not start by committing to a year upfront, right? I'm the kind of person who likes to go all in things, so if someone told me, hey, here's the process, these are the results, let's do this for a year, I would say, yeah, let's do it. But you might be skeptical and say, is there a way for me to try this for myself or try this with you, right? So his transformation started with one daily RDT loop. Like we said, the RDT loop is regulate, debug, track, regulate your nervous system with meditation, debug one story or a mental bug, track your data in ActualizeOS daily. If you want to run this loop with one-on-one guidance with me and the community, book a call from the link in description. Calendly.com, data-driven actualization, U2 is where you book that link. And if you're not ready yet, that's completely okay. I've got a free data-driven calm protocol, which is a 7-day process for you to test out the RDT loop. So you can download that in the link in description too. Or if you want to understand conceptually what the RDT loop does, how it was built, and what it's capable of for your life, check out this video that I'll probably link as an info icon at the top, and understand more of this process, and hopefully one day you run it and see the change in your own life. So I hope you enjoyed getting to see a little bit more of the behind the scenes of how we track data and use it to help people transform as a part of data-driven actualization. And I also hope this inspires you to take some of the practices we talked about and implement them in your own life. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.